What fact is common knowledge to people who work in your field, but almost unknown to the rest of the population? If you're putting in new carpet, always go top shelf with the pad. The increase in cost is negligible and the upgrade to feel, usability and endurance of the rug on top will be way better dollar to value ratio than spending on the carpet itself. £8 memory foam is maybe $2 a yard more than trash apartment grade stuff, but 10 times better underfoot. Go for the cheapest carpet you can stand. Remember, you aren't going to be running your fingers through your house's carpet for more than 3 days after it's installed. And put the best damn pad money can buy under it. You'll spend less and it'll feel like you bought $50 a yard carpet. Just because a disabled child person is non-verbal, that doesn't necessarily mean they can't understand everything you're saying. It's crazy how often I have to tell my own staff to watch what they're saying. These kids still get embarrassed or upset if you talk about the massive crap they just took right in front of the whole class. Edit. Never thought I'd be saying this, but thank you for the gold kind stranger. The conversation this has caused has been amazing. I've loved reading through the replies and threads, and some of your stories have been really heartwarming. Thanks for making my day, Reddit. Not my current field, but when I worked at Starbucks, not a lot of people understood that a larger espresso drink does not always equals more caffeine. A tall drink has 1 shot, grand has 2, and a venti also has 2, unless it's iced and then it gets a 3rd shot. So many times customers would order a grand latte and say, you know what, you'd better make that a venti. I can use the extra caffeine, when in fact the larger size is just more diluted with milk. If you are looking for more caffeine, a drip coffee is going to be the most bang for your buck. Also, this seems really obvious, but a lot of people would get upset when they ordered a flavored coffee and saw that I would put syrup in it. No, coffee beans do not naturally come in caramel, vanilla, toffee nut, raspberry etc. flavor. The best treatment for a child with anxiety is treating their parents' anxiety. Edit. Thanks for the awards, kind strangers. For those curious, I am a licensed mental health professional that specializes in children. I appreciate that some people noted that anxiety is a necessary and healthy reaction that all people experience. Very true. Worries help keep us safe and let us know when there is danger. It's the worries that interfere with daily functioning that become an issue. I think of anxiety issues on a spectrum. On one end is a healthy dose and on the other is a diagnosable anxiety disorder. There are people all across that spectrum that would benefit from therapy and are learning some adaptive strategies. As some have pointed out, a child's anxiety is not 100% a result of a parent's anxiety. There are, of course, cases where a child develops anxiety due to other circumstances. However, in the majority of cases with anxiety in children, it can be treated by treating the parent. Children look to their parents for guidance to learn about what is and isn't safe. They are sponges that are constantly learning how to react to different things they approach. One of the easiest examples to see this is when a child experiences a minor injury scare. They will naturally look to a trusted adult to judge how they should react. If the adult gasps, comes running with their arms extended, making a worried face, the child learns it was bad and they should be upset or scared. If the parent was to smile, shrug, and say oh man, the child will likely brush it off and move on, unless they acquired an injury, of course. Think about this on a bigger scale. If a child is consistently learning the world is a scary and dangerous place, there are threats everywhere, etc., they are being set up for anxiety issues. Same goes for specific phobias. Many of these are directly taught to children by seeing their parents fear. Nothing says to be afraid of something more than the person you rely on for your survival showing their own genuine fear. Simply following up with children regarding a scary or uncomfortable experience can make a world of difference. If you can inform them of what made that specific experience dangerous or scary, that helps teach them what to look out for instead of generalizing that fear to any experience that involves the same factors. One common example is children's fear of bugs. The children have never had a bad experience with bugs, but the fact their parent runs away screaming from them each time she has an encounter is a pretty clear message to them that they are not safe to be around. Nothing like the person you trust most in this world expressing panic to discourage you from even getting close to them, especially when she reinforces your anxious reactions by holding you and crying with you after you nearly escape death by a caterpillar. an elevator will go up to the top of the hoist instead of crash to the floor in most catastrophic failures due to the counterweights. And normally lifts, or elevators, have 4, 8, 12 or 16 or more cables. They can't snap, they can be cut, or something can destroy them, but the cables themselves literally can't all snap at once. Each cable can support the lift's weight itself, or should be able to, and there are between 4 and 16, or more, on some very large express elevators like in US skyscrapers, per lift car. Then there are brakes on many lifts on tall buildings which should be able to slow the lift down by clamping onto something, essentially metal bits. Grab metal bits. On smaller buildings these aren't used because they take time to work, they're not instant. They make initialize instantly, but they take time to slow the lift down, like braking a car at 20 miles an hour. You don't just stop, you carry on for a few meters. If the building is only 20 or 30 meters high, it's not really worth it. But then I've never heard of any major accident injury from a 25-meter lift car falling down out of nowhere with people inside, or a 600-meter lift, for that matter. I mean, I guess if a meteor flies through the lift shaft like an Armageddon or something, sure, that might make the lift fall down. But that's the least of the problems. They'll be dead from the shockwave before the car hits the bottom, or if a giant tsunami 4 miles high is approaching. Admittedly, yes, that might cut the electrics and magnets and everything and the lift might hold for a moment, but I mean, microseconds later the entire building is swept away and everyone's dead from the concrete and pressure, so really, the emergency brakes won't help much. Again, I've not come across that before, would make for one hell of an overtime sheet. Edit. Or, to be a bit blatant about it, on 911, I am sure a few lift elevator cars had their cables cut. And I would hand on heart bet money the people in those cars when the planes hit were still in the air suspended by the shaft until the buildings came down. As far as I am aware, there are no reports by responders saying the elevator shafts at ground level had cars in them with piled bodies, so there you go. A real life disaster movie. Even a plane flying into a building and cutting all the cable and exploding and powering off the shafts won't cause them to fall. Edit 2. Uncertain what happens in the event of a Dracarys, however. I work in Parkinson's disease research. For Parkinson's it's loss of smell, REM sleep disturbances and constipation. These can start up to 20 years before motor symptoms develop. There is currently no treatments to stop or slow the progression of the disease. Edit. As a lot of people are asking, I'll add this reply to another comment here. Just to clarify, having loss of smell or any of the other non-motor symptoms doesn't mean that you will get Parkinson's. There are also lots of cases where Parkinson's occurs without these symptoms. Finally, the symptoms could occur 20 years before or two. It's a very complicated disease with many different potential genetic and environmental causal factors. Edit 2. If you are experiencing any of these symptoms and are concerned, you should consult your doctor. It's far more likely that there is a cause other than Parkinson's. In some museums, what you see on the shelves can be less than 10% of the whole collection. For example, the Louvre has over 460,000 items in their collection, and only has space to display about 35,000 of those, roughly 7.6% of their total collection, due to limited physical space, and for aesthetic purposes. Most items in museums stay back in storage and/or archives. Plus, most items need to be maintained at certain temperatures and light. If we can't meet those needs, it will never be allowed for public viewing, ever. There are most likely some of the most amazing, visually stunning pieces of artwork that you or anyone will never get to see. Bonus: accession and deaccession can also be a touchy area. Just because it's old doesn't mean we're going to take it and add it to the collections, and we try to be nice to people who are disappointed we won't take their precious family heirlooms. Other times, it's easier just to say, yeah, we don't want that. Edited. For correct percentage of the Louvre's collection, it's lower than I thought. Edited again. For those who were asking, I have a BA in art history and a master's in museum studies. I presently work as a digital preservation librarian in the archives and special collections of a university, and have worked in numerous museums universities all over the world. It's been quite a fulfilling job. I've handled artwork from Michelangelo, Rembrandt, Warhol, Pollock, Picasso, and many more. Ask away, and I'll answer if I can. I studied classical music, and it wasn't uncommon for someone to play an instrument on loan from a museum or private collection. I was 16 and playing a 300-year-old instrument from a museum across the country because it's easier to maintain an instrument being played than just sitting. Strings and bows stretch over time due to tension and keeping things in tune. Maintaining the hair and strings are actually pretty important due to the tension they put on the bridge and bows. It saw luthier regularly and was always kept in good condition. Plus it was used for its intended purpose instead of sitting behind glass, which to me was the most important part. Yes, there was insurance coverage at every turn, but it's beneficial to both parties in the end. I got an instrument that was able to be played at a high level that I'd never be able to afford, and the museum had a part of their collection maintained regularly. All processors begin as top of the line and then may end up lower because they didn't make the threshold. Explaining with an example. Edit. The following is only an example to make things a bit oversimplified and not the actual specs or the actual names. Edit. Intel only tries to make i9 processors. Let's say they have 16 cores. Since the process of making these is hard, only 20-30% have all cores working. Next they see the amount processors with more than or equal to 8 cores. Disable extra cores just to make sure only 8 cores work and ship them as i7. Next 4, 5, 6 and 7 in all only 4 cores are left working and shipped as i5. 2 and 3 only 2 cores are left operating and all others are switched off, shipped as i3. Hope that makes sense. Also, this was a hypothetical example. Not all facts may be accurate, they should be, but just in case. Also, this is done to minimize wastage, which in turn makes these things cheaper, so it's a win-win for all. Also, this isn't just done by Intel. Snapdragon, AMD all do it. So when you hear Nvidia is unable to meet the supply of their top tier card, it's not because they didn't try hard enough. It is because they keep failing to reach the benchmarks they expect in their top tier cards and sell them as low tier, because the yield is low. Note, this is a very difficult process and checking for mistakes in each piece at 14nm is not possible, since verification is a destructive process, so if something is wrong generally a batch gets screwed. Edit. Thanks for the silver, my first silver. Important edit. This is a bit oversimplified. Low-end processors are also made, but they require setting up an entire assembly line, and thus are only done if there is a high demand and a very high probability of significantly better yield. Also, cores are not just the only parts disabled. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm only 16, so I hope you didn't cringe from the editing. I hope we can get to 50,000 subscribers because I wouldn't be here without all of you. So thank you so much for your time and energy, and please subscribe.